Hi everybody, good evening. Shakti here, going live again. I think this is the third time in a row that myself and the beautiful Eugina O'Liberty are going to be spending an hour to share with you and talk about dating in 2025. Bear with me while I just invite Eugina to join the call. I love technology for the fact that we can do this. I love it. It's so brilliant. We were just messaging one another a little bit before because we're so excited. There's like so many things we've got to talk about. Oh, here we go. No, there we go. She's coming. So good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to be talking about dating in 2025 and there you are.
Hey.
Hello.
Oh,
Wow. I'm just going to turn my volume up, actually. I didn't
sure.
hear you very well. You look gorgeous.
Well, thank you so much. And I have my branded hoodie too.
What does it say?
It says Eugina O'Liberty, unleash your true desires.
Oh.
Mm.
Now, there's something really weird. I can't hear you very
Oh, I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, I muted myself. I can't hear you very well, and I've got my volume. Let me just try something else.
Maybe
Say something now.
Well, can you hear me now?
I can, but it's really quiet.
Oh, so maybe whoever is watching us can share with us. Can you hear both of us all right? Or maybe me is a bit quieter. Can you hear Shakti? How is the volume? Can you hear us all right? Please share with us. That would be very highly appreciated.
While we're waiting, I mean, it's really quiet, and I really don't want to have to go off the call. I'll have to just really concentrate on what you're saying. If you can hear me okay. If I look a bit vacant a few times, that's why. Okay, it's not that I don't like you or I don't like what you're saying. I'm just excited, Eugina. I think you're so awesome, and I really am loving these conversations that we've been having. I really hope that people who've been watching and following have got something from some of our sharing, have felt inspired, have felt supported, have felt curious, you know, that conversations have gotten started, because I know that, like me, you are so passionate about love and relationship and expanding and living the best, most fulfilling lives that we can, which of course includes relating and intimacy.
Absolutely. And likewise, I'm just so happy that we are like in synchronicity with one another, having these conversations, and they just flow, and we always have more to say, always more. Like 1 hour seems not to be enough. I think if we would sit down for a week, we still would have things to talk about afterwards.
Yeah.
And I feel that this is wonderful that we can share this with our communities, people who maybe think about those things but don't really voice them. And it's important that we address things in dating because it's a hot topic. All of us are looking for love. All of us want to be loved. All of us want to give love.
Yes.
It's so wonderful.
Yeah. And also, you know, one of the things, I'm still trying to play with my sound so I can hear you better. One of the things that I think that we're doing without even realizing it in a way is that when I've, you know, like the last couple of weeks, I held a couple of groups. One group was with women, two groups with women, one group with men, around the title Conscious Dating. And the thing that I forget, because I'm used to being quite outspoken and I'm used to sort of standing in the spotlight in a certain way in facilitating, is that for a lot of people there's shame, and for a lot of people it can feel quite scary to speak up about these things or to admit to these things in public, or just in front of other people. So my sense is that a lot of things are sort of kept quiet or kept in and not really shared too much out of sort of ideas of shame or fear, or I don't want to be seen in a certain way. And whereas, well, I'll speak for myself, I'm quite happy to be open and to speak from the heart. And, you know, I don't always get it right, but I do see that there's a value in speaking openly about our experiences and not feeling ashamed, and, you know, admitting that we sometimes get things wrong, or that sometimes things are painful, or like we're learning a lesson, or something's really challenging. Because I think the more that we speak in that way, like not to elevate ourselves, but to just show our raw humanity, like we're all in it together. You know, we're all learning and growing as we go along.
Yeah, I totally agree. A lot of us, almost all of us, are busy of looking good and avoiding looking bad.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel that there is so much shame in dating and relationship to be hurt, or to you know, to be broken up with, you know, or
Yeah.
once in a relationship, or admitting yourself that you want more in the relationship. Like all of those things, there's so much, like layers and layers and layers and layers. And like, and actually so many, it keeps so many people lonely,
Yeah.
because it's so lonely. You cannot really talk to your family and friends very often. I have clients who come to me and they say, you know what, I cannot talk about things like that with my family and friends, because they straight away start, you know, patronizing them, saying it's like,
Yeah.
hey, why aren't you not married yet? Or like, hey, when you gonna do? So there's this pressure, and we
Yeah.
keep those very sensitive and gentle parts of ourselves to ourselves, and it keeps us isolated.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. And you know, it's vulnerable. Just stepping into this field is a vulnerable thing to do. um and that's beautiful. And again, there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. And I think sometimes there can be a fear just around that, because it's a little bit uncomfortable. But of course, when you're stepping into the field of relating, in whatever capacity, however casual or however deep it is for you, and whatever your desires are, and everyone is unique, but there's a vulnerability because your heart is included, and, you know, your past experiences come with you. And one of the things that came, you know what, we haven't introduced ourselves, but we've already gone into
Just went straight into it.
we've gone straight in. Maybe we'll do that in a minute.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed in the groups that I held, you know, what was interesting was people weren't really there to say, oh, how, like, for a practical tip about which app shall I go on, and how many times should I post, and how do I respond. It wasn't like the practical nitty gritty of online dating or dating in 2025 in terms of like the practical steps. Everything that people spoke about, whether man or woman, the things that were being spoken about were fears, shame, past pains, and wounds from past relationships, whether like the most recent past relationship, or like wounding that goes right back to childhood. So the minute the idea comes of like, I'm stepping into this relational field, and the possibility of relating, and the possibility of having what I desire, and really owning that, then all of these things come up, you know, which is like our very human vulnerability around the heart.
Mm. You know, I feel that there is so much around desire. And in fact, even the word desire is so triggering for so many. It's like, desire? Oh my God, I don't have any desires. It's like, I don't want anything. It's like, no, I'm fine living in this box under the rock. It's okay. It's like, well, I just had this conversation with my mom once, and I was like, in your wildest dream, if you could have anything, what would that be?
Mm.
She's like, oh, Eugina, don't be silly. I'm like, just tell me, what would that be? She's like, I don't know. I'm like, just imagine you could have anything you want.
Mm.
She's like, well, I would like so that food would be ready when I come back home from work. So
Wow.
that was her wildest dream,
Wow.
right? That she, like, we are so disconnected from our desires, like so disconnected. We don't think we can have them. We think that it's like silly to spend time on dreaming. We think that, you know, you shouldn't be dreaming because, you know, you should be doing. Is like more of the how you can get, you know, what you like, what you think is achievable, instead of like creating your wildest dreams. And you know, a couple months later, I've checked in with my mom. I was like, hey mom, so how are you doing? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just going to pick up some food from my neighbor. I'm like, oh, what's that? Tell me that. She's like, well, my neighbor, she got a job in a restaurant, and basically she brings food for me also, so when I come back home from work, the food is ready. I'm like, oh, isn't that nice? A couple months ago, that was your dream, do you remember? She's like, oh yes, that's true. So even when our dreams become a reality, we are not present enough to acknowledge that what we want is here.
Mm-hmm.
What once has been a dream now is here.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't like appreciate this, you know, when it comes into our life. So a lot of my clients, when, you know, when we work together, when we start working together, and they're like, yeah, I want this beautiful relationship, this amazing partner, they list all the qualities of the partner. I'm like, all right, great. So imagine your dream partner gonna knock on the door right now and tell you, hi, I'm here for you. What would be your response? What would be your reaction? And majority says like, whoa, I'm not ready. Come back in 3 months. You know, and this is it. It's like, I think the idea of relationship is great,
Mm-hmm.
but not many people willing to actually become that person, that perfect partner themselves. They rather expect it from the other, instead of thinking is like, how can I be the best version of myself right now?
Right. So yeah, there's a couple of things there that you've said that I'd love to respond to. So one is the thing about desire, because I think there's so much social pressure and conditioning to deny and repress desire right across the board. So like you say, people are just not even in touch with what it is. And I remember that as well, like with a particular client. And I remember sort of saying like, what is it you really desire? And she couldn't access it. And for me, that was like so unfamiliar. It was like, I couldn't comprehend that you can't know what you really desire. That's because it's such a level of disconnection. And one thing I want to say though is that for me, like, because you know, I've started this whole thing with a conscious dating collective through my own declaration of I intend to date. And it's the honestly the making that declaration and owning my desire that has just catalyzed so many opportunities and such a flow of energy for me that I'm just riding this wave of energy. And it all started with me claiming my desire and just speaking it and owning it rather than pretending that I don't have it. And I have it. I have this desire, and just claiming it has just unlocked so much for me. It's really thrilling and exciting. And, you know, that's available to anybody and everybody. And, you know, there's this thing about also saying I want, which again, I think for women in particular can be a very difficult thing to say. I want. I want, or if you don't like the word want, I desire. And I've got this practice that I'm doing at the moment where every day I write in a book, my journal, what I want. And it can be anything, just to kind of really get me into the flow and the flood of like, what do I really want? I want to go to Mexico. I want to, have my book published. I want to speak on stage to thousands of people. And I just keep going with like all these desires, but it could also be a small thing. Like I want someone to massage my hands, it could be anything, but it's just whatever, just to have the practice of claiming what you really, really want without shame and without holding back and without the belief of like, oh, I can't have it, which, I had that conditioning of, it was greedy to ask for what you wanted. That was my childhood conditioning. Greedy to ask what you want, greedy to ask for more. You can't have what you want. You'll have what you're given. So for me to unlock this piece of like, well, actually, this is what I want. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's beautiful. And look at all the life force that ignites and unlocks. Like, my gosh, so much life force is in that question to yourself. That's what I'm discovering, because it's like, now I'm sitting on this like and daring to claim it, and also daring to say no to what is not that, which goes hand in hand, right? So the capacity to be so empowered and so owning what you want, that's very clear then what doesn't fit that, so that you can then say no, and sort of keep that intention aligned, and the other part that you said about becoming the person, which is kind of separate to this, but I think it's also good because again, that came up in a couple of the groups. And sometimes, like you say, the focus can be so much on what you want to get from that person. It's like forgetting like you're going into a co-creative space. And, because my focus is very much on doing this consciously, it's like, what is it you want? What is it you really want? So be clear on that and be honest about that with yourself, so that you can be clear and honest with the other. And then, like, what are you like, who are you being to attract that which you want? Like, you want this idea of relationship or this kind of person, so are you actually a match for what you're looking for? And how can you how can you become the partner that you would most love to have? Because really it is about being in love with yourself. It is about a love affair with yourself, really.
Yeah, I love that. I saw this little video about the actress. I can't remember her name, and she's like, I just want to be in love with me, and I want to share that with somebody. I just want to be in love with me and share that me with you.
Yeah.
And I just love how that, the whole vibe of that. It sounds like, yeah, I want to be in love with myself, and I want to share that with you. So for you to appreciate, so what you can do, you can actually be in love with yourself and share that with me. And that will be wonderful unison. But also there is a myth that I want to address here, that you're supposed to be fully healed before entering the relationship. It's like, you don't have to be fully healed before you enter in the relationship. Actually, relationships are healing. This is relationships are the medicine. Relationships are this is the antidote to your loneliness, into your, like, yes, you may get triggered, yes, you may find some friction. Nevertheless, when you work with your partner together on the aspects that needs healing, you can support each other in this space. And it's so beautiful when that happens, when two people come together and they just like connect and grow together. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I want to add something to that, not to disagree, but
Bring it on.
Yeah, to add, I kind of like, from what I was saying at the beginning, going into relationship is gonna be vulnerable. Your heart is gonna open. Your stuff is gonna rise up. You do not have to be perfect. I think I carried that myth myself, actually, again, for a long time. Like, oh, I have to be, like, I have to heal this, and I have to heal that, and I have to, know all the conscious relationship skills, and I have to, and it was almost like this expectation of absolute perfection of myself, which is ridiculous, because we're all a work in progress, and we always will be. And relationship has the capacity to be incredibly healing and incredibly nourishing and incredibly fulfilling and expansive. And I think the possibility of that grows the more we're in love with ourselves and entering into relationship consciously, and the more we do have at least some of those tools already to be able to navigate our triggers and to be able to hold space for ourselves when these things come up, and so, like, even because we're talking dating at the moment, we're not even talking being in a relationship, so even dating can be triggering. And one of the things that I've been learning in this process, and what I love about it, is that I'm getting to learn more about myself. I'm getting to see how actually I have grown and how much more whole I am, so that I am no longer triggered by certain behaviors. And I'm just like, no, that's not for me. Clear, but there's no other thing attached to it. And there's also, yes, I like this, I respond to this, I'm going to say yes to this. And also in the way that I communicate, like, because there's a lot of texting that happens in online dating, for example. And I think there can be so much room for misinterpretation and for triggering even in that. If we're not doing it consciously, if we're not able to be self-aware and take full responsibility for the interactions that are happening. And again, sort of something that I've seen is like this tendency in certain circles to be quite critical of the opposite sex, in the assumption that they should behave a certain way, without necessarily understanding that there are differences, generally speaking, in ways of communicating and ways of showing up, that so all of this we bring into awareness, and then, like, there's a greater chance of the healing that you're speaking of. Regardless, though, even if things go tits up, I don't know if I can say that on Facebook, the way I see it is that everything is a growth, everything is a learning, even if it's a goodbye, even if it's a breakup, even if it doesn't feel aligned. You've learned something about yourself. You've grown in some way. You've seen that there's still, like, a part of you that needs to be tended to, that what might get triggered by certain things. So it's then brought into your awareness. So there's an opportunity for that to be integrated.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about breakups?
Absolutely. Actually, a lot of people see breakups as a failure.
Right.
And it's so interesting to me, because I don't consider breakup being a failure. I consider a breakup to be something that acknowledgement for self that, well, this is no longer working for me, or this is no longer valid or in alignment in my life. And breakups can happen for various reasons. There are good breakups, there are like messy breakups, there's like all kinds of things, but what is really, I think people, this is why a lot of people are holding back in dating, because they like cannot handle going through the pain of the breakup. And I had some clients that I worked with who like been knowing somebody for 3 weeks or something like that, been on just a handful of dates, but when that person would say, or not even say, but decide not to respond to the messages, or the separation was very clear.
Yeah.
The pain of that separation was completely disabling. Like, I had one client, she was like so bad, she was like on the floor from from the separation with somebody who she didn't even know that well, like
Yeah.
just a couple of weeks, and you just give your power away to this person who comes into your life, and it's like, oh well, here, oh, this person is in, so here's responsibility of my happiness to you, here's the keys to my heart, my soul, my happiness, my la 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 la, and the list goes on. And that person is like, well, this is a little bit overwhelming for me. What do I do with all of this? It's like such a big responsibility. But we tend to do that, especially women. We tend to do that. When we meet someone, we already like, oh, the wedding bells ringing, or like we tend to like see further. It's like, is this somebody I'm gonna have kids with? Is this somebody I'm gonna like la 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 la? And we just like start imagining stories to ourselves. And then when the stories don't work out, our feelings get hurt.
Mm. Yeah. Um, I can really speak to that from both a personal and a professional perspective, because I used to do that. And so I know what it's like. And I know that giving the heart away and giving the power away in that way is coming from an absence of self-love. It's a neediness, it's a seeking validation, it's a needing approval. It's basically, it's a part of the self that is looking for love from the external, because there's a part of the internal self that hasn't been met. Usually a much younger part, and it's like an old childhood wound that then gets brought back into every new dating or relating situation. So and I actually do know that kind of pain, because I used to feel it a lot, and it's like really visceral. Like, I used to feel like my whole chest was like breaking apart. It's really intense, and that's, it's trauma. It's childhood trauma from some kind of abandonment or separation from a parent or a caregiver. Normally it's normally related to that kind of thing. So this is why, again, I'm talking about conscious dating, conscious relating, is that we bring these things into awareness, not because we're bad people or not because we're doing anything wrong, but to lovingly see, oh, there's this tender part of me that needs some healing, needs some tending to, so that I bring a greater degree of wholeness onto myself, so that when I date and relate next time, I'm not grasping onto the first person who comes along and then just, projecting this need onto them for them to like feed this empty part inside of me. I'm already whole or more whole, so I don't need to grab onto anything. I can still stay in my center and witness myself and observe myself and assess, like, is this actually a good match for me? Because, after one or two dates, you're not going to know that realistically. You're just not, even though there can be this fantasy that, you've met your soulmate. You're not going to know the truth of that quickly. So, and then the other things are like the fear of rejection and the fear of loss. Well, look, I'll be honest with you. Like, I don't want to say too much about this, but like, I recently had a really amazing date with a really amazing man where I felt met on every level in a way I have not felt met on every level for a very long time. So it was incredible to have that experience. It's something I've called in. It's something I wished for. And I did feel vulnerable for a couple of days after that, because I noticed, wow, like, I've opened, and it felt really vulnerable to be in that. And I could notice that there were stories going off in my head. But the difference between me now and me how I used to be is that I could hold all of that and just bear witness to it and love it and just let the energy of it move through and not attached to it, you know, and within a few days that had moved, it had moved through. And the thing is, you know, when you love someone, they are going to go at some point, or you're going to go at some point. You never know when. And the reality is, we don't own somebody. We don't have ownership over our partners. And if you're seeking to kind of lock them in and pin them down, again, like I'd suggest that's kind of not a very healthy way of relating. It's like, it could be for a day, it could be for a week, it could be for 3 months, it could be for a year, it could be for a lifetime. But if your head's going into the story of the lifetime together, like within a few dates, you know, you're getting into an illusion, you're getting into fantasy, and you're setting yourself up. It's like loss is going to come at some point. Loss is part of life. So just let go, be present, and be true to yourself now. Like what is true for you now? Because you don't know, you might not even like that person in 2 weeks time.
Right, right. That's it. That's it. And Shakti, what would you say, you know, for someone who tend to like create those illusions when they just meet somebody and straight away they just like go into the world of, oh, this would happen and this and forever after and like all of that. Like what could you say to a person like that? How to like maybe manage that state of being in illusion and how to snap yourself back into real world right now, as a matter of fact, world.
Well, if I was sitting with someone and that's how they were presenting, I guess there's a few things. So one is, yeah, there's a couple of things I would say. Like, so one is, I think that if you don't have the capacity to self-witness, it's going to be hard to disentangle yourself from that as a story of the mind. So, like, again, I can only speak personally. Like, my capacity to know these things about myself, even though I've studied and read and trained a lot, the biggest difference for me has been a dedication to a meditation practice where I am able to know myself as more than or deeper than the identity that does get attached to things. So there's like a loosening of identification with the story of the personality self. I mean, that's quite a deep answer, but that's the truth. You know, because I think if we don't know, if we are so fully identified with our personality, it can be really difficult to have perspective, right? I think another thing I might say is just to slow down and like put time in, because hormones get activated, particularly if we're intimate with somebody, right? And those hormones can really kind of, I would say, slow down, don't get intimate too quickly, space your dates apart, make sure you keep prioritizing your own life and your own interests, and speak to somebody, like have a support person who is able to honestly reflect back to you with compassion what they perceive. Because I think another thing, I don't know if it's just in the UK, but like people are very polite. And I remember like when I was going through some situations like way back when I was doing this kind of behavior, and nobody in my friendship circle said to me, don't you think like you're going off on a bit of a fantasy here? No, like nobody said, don't you think you're jumping in too quickly? And actually for me, it would have served as a bit of a wake-up call if somebody I respect, not like a stranger who's projecting onto me, but somebody who knows me, would have just kind of said, you know what, Shakti, I can see you're going into that thing again where you're kind of getting lost in illusion. And, you know, I'm concerned that you don't really know this person yet, and this could be an unhealthy dynamic.
Yeah, yeah. It's very helpful to have good people around, a good support system. I actually find this one of the most important things when I meet someone is like, do they have a support system? You know, because I have a brilliant support system around me. I can call on my friends, I can call on my coaches, like anybody
Yeah.
is just great. And I used to date a guy and he didn't have any friends, like not a one friend who he could give a call and talk about what happens in his life.
Right.
So what happened was, like, we dated for 4 months, and what happened was that he was really putting it all on me, like being his uh, partner, being his girlfriend, like his support system, like everything. And that was too much pressure for me. I was like, there
Right.
is no way I can handle, or I even want to
Don't
handle
want to.
all of your stuff. I have my own, you know? I have my own. It's like, and that's just absolutely unacceptable to me for you to dump all of what you're going through on me. This is
Right.
the responsibility of you creating your support system. And I go to a therapy. How about that? you know? And the answer
Yeah.
was like, no, I don't need therapy. I don't want therapy. And actually, the reason for a breakup was, well, you are not willing to look after yourself to be the best version of you for you, so I can enjoy you. Therefore, we no longer can see each other because
Mm.
I'm doing my part and I'm not here to carry your suitcase on top of mine.
Oh, I like that phrase. I'm not here to carry your suitcase. Yeah. Um, and again, I can speak from personal experience as well as working with clients around this. And I think it is more common. I don't know. I believe it's more common for women to step into that role of being the caretaker or the
Mm,
empath or the nurturer
mm,
or the listener.
mm,
And I remember getting myself into one situation, and because I do that for a living, because I am an empath, because I'm a brilliant listener, because I
yeah.
can really hold space deeply,
Mhm.
I would find myself falling into that role in a relationship or a lovership, and then I would feel resentful, and then I would feel energetically drained, and of course it also took the attraction out of the situation because I didn't feel sexually attracted to a guy that I was holding space for in that kind of nurturing role. And that's not to say that I don't want to be nurturing and loving. That's not, but like when you turn into someone's unofficial counselor or support instead of their lover and their partner, like the desire for me, like just kind of went. It's just not attractive. It's yeah, it's like go and do that somewhere else and then come to me,
Yeah,
like when you're full and like in yourself,
yeah,
in your power. And it's not like I'm not saying you can't ever be vulnerable. We're all vulnerable sometimes. We all sometimes want to offload, but there has to be a balance.
mm,
There has to
yeah,
be, and again, the thing about having your own network of friends and support is so important. Same here. Like, I don't know what I'd do without my friend circle. They're all amazing. I've got so many amazing people around me, and I can go and talk to them, and I can share, and I won't be judged, and I'll just be held. And I know that they can really get where I'm coming from. They don't project onto me. It's just such a beautiful holding. And that's, I think, I've heard quite a few people say it takes a village
mm,
to have a healthy relationship,
yeah,
actually. And I think that's true. It's because things will happen, there will be difficult moments, and then when we can go to our support network,
mm,
and they're not going to jump onto the sort of bandwagon, the unconscious bandwagon, which would be, oh, I knew he was an arsehole, oh, I knew she was a bitch. Like, no, none of that stuff.
mm,
It's more like helping you to see what you need, helping you to understand yourself, helping you to get clear on, okay, this is what I need to communicate. So it remains very focused on self responsibility. And yeah, that was the thing that I wanted to say about breakups, is that when I'm dating somebody, I do pay attention to how they speak about their ex. And for me, like a massive red flag, which I also will own I overrode, but now I know, is if they talk shit about their ex, I'm like, mm-mm, no. And I'll tell you why. It's because for me, that indicates a lack of self-awareness and a lack of self-responsibility. And it also means their energy is still going into mulling over that past situation. There's still some emotion and some energy tied up with that former relationship. You know, so I've been through that journey myself. I used to do it. I totally own that. I've also overridden that. So that's how I know. And like now it's such a red flag. And in contrast, you know, and my daughter is 21. She's my daughter. She's amazing. I'm so proud of her. She's just broken up with her boyfriend. And the way she relayed the whole thing to me, it was never about like how bad he was, what he did wrong, how he sucked. It was simply an acknowledgement that her needs weren't being met. And it was just a case of her getting really clear, you know, this is what I'd like. And he's not able, he doesn't have the capacity to fulfill that role.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with him. That's just him. This is me. It's just not aligned right now. And I just was so proud of her, the way she relayed it to me, because there was not an energy of blame in it at all. And she even sort of spoke to me today and said, oh, we went for a walk and, you know, we had a beautiful conversation, and it's just kind of gone back to friendship, and it feels great. And I feel really clear. And I just thought, you know, I'm so proud of you, because this is, the more we can all be like this, I really do believe it makes such a difference in the whole field of relating, you know, because then people don't go on to their next relationship with resentment or fear or trauma or further wounding. Like, we can all make a difference to the whole relational field.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually relating with your daughter right now. Like, I'm resonating with your daughter right now, I meant to say, because I'm actually going through a breakup with my partner, and just, you know, the same situation. We want different things in a relationship, and you know, he has capacity for and vision for something, and I have capacity and vision for something else. And somehow our relationship came to an end. And again, this is nothing to feel sad about, or, you know, it's just, well, it's actually good to acknowledge when you're complete, you know, because like what tend to happen, a lot of people tend to drug things and like try to squeeze the juice out of, like, I don't know, dry stick. You know, there is no juice, there is no juice, there's nothing to squeeze, there's nothing, you know. And it's like, and they like trying to make it like, what are you trying for? Like, yes, it's great, you tried, you seen that there is no results, like, and you just sometimes torturing each other with like not letting go, but also not being fully in it. And I think it takes quite a big courage to take a decision to acknowledge, well, actually this isn't working, you know. And you know, however, like for me, that's 3 times personally. It's like I can acknowledge, it's like, well, there is something that needs adjustment. So if we make adjustment and it isn't working, or like going back to the original state, it's like, okay, one more time, we try again, one more time, this needs an adjustment, so we try maybe a different way, you know. It's like whatever. But if it isn't working, it's like, why am I gonna like go over and over and over and over that again and again and again? We already tried, we already communicated about it, and it doesn't seem to make a difference. So in that case, I just gonna acknowledge where I am is different to where you are, and that's okay. So in that way, let's live this relationship so that you can have what you want and I can have what I want, because I am not willing to settle on my priorities, you know, on my non-negotiables. This is just as simple as that. And this is why when, you know, in the beginning of the relationship or even at the dating stage, talking about what are your non-negotiables, very important conversation. But again, all of us want to be liked and avoid not being liked. So a lot of us say things that, you know, yes, 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 this is for me, this is like this, these are my values also, but a lot of people don't live the values that they say. So, you know, there is like this dissonance where people say but they don't follow through, or it's like they don't live what they say they are,
Right.
if that makes sense. And only getting to know each other more, you can understand, is this person really who they say they are, or they say one thing but actually who they are, they're a different person. And this is, you can understand that only when you spend enough time with that person.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, there's like, again, like so much I want to say around that, because it comes back to being authentic, right? It comes back to being honest and authentic and being yourself. And the reason people don't do that, again, I speak from experience, is the fear of not being loved and the fear of being rejected. So if your need to be validated and your need to be loved is stronger than your self-love, you're gonna be inauthentic. And I don't mean, looks like some people might hear that and think that I'm talking about being like this really fake person. I don't mean that. But I just mean that and I used to do this a lot, and I see a lot of people doing it still, is in order to control or manage or actually unconsciously manipulate the situation when you're interacting with somebody, especially somebody new, is that there's bits of yourself that you withhold, there's bits of yourself that you hide, and you might not speak your actual truth in conversation with them out of fear that they won't like you, or out of fear of rejection. So, you know, but then at a certain point, the truth is going to come out. But the thing is, it's like, dare to be your true self from the very get-go. Just be yourself. And that, of course, comes back to what we were saying before. It comes back to self-love, because again, I perceive like the more we love ourselves, the more authentically we're going to show up. And the less we love ourselves, the more inauthentic we're going to be. And it's like all these learned behaviors come out, which again, these are the adaptive strategies that we learned as children, because we all learned as children certain ways to behave, which we thought were love, but they're just kind of conditionings of like, I had to be this way to survive. So, you know, again, speak from experience, so it's relatable. In my family, I was the listener. I listened to everybody, and I was the mediator. I mediated between all the different conflicts happening in the family. I didn't voice what I wanted. I didn't say what I needed because there wasn't space for that. So I was the mediator, the listener, and the people pleaser. And then guess what I went on to do in other relationships is to replay that whole thing. And then, so if a red flag came up very early on in a dating situation, I wouldn't say what I was noticing, even though I would notice something was like not aligned, because of this ingrained pattern of like being nice and making allowances for people and making sure they're happy and caretaking them, right? So I can see it all now. It's so clear, but that's inauthentic. So that's what I mean about being unauthentic. And then you're going to get yourself into a situation that isn't authentic, obviously, because you build on that foundation. What was the other thing that you said? Trying trying to change people. That was what I wrote down. It's like that's the other thing that comes with the illusions, the fantasies, is that we project this idea onto people, you know, and then we try to change them. This is very codependent behavior. Again, hands up, healing from codependency. We try to change them to be what we want them to be so that we're happy. That's just so fucked up, but it's very human, and a lot of people do it, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just saying, oh, we're different. You want different things to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay.
And it's okay.
And you know, like, to be honest, if those different things are outside of non-negotiables, maybe that's even fine. But if those different things are non-negotiables, then you know you're definitely not a good match.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that. And it's no more complicated than you will find out you either a good match or not a good match. That's it, you know, by being authentic. Just and so many of us holding back in expressing that, you know, in expressing ourselves and our true values and what we truly want from relationship. And it's like, well, you know, but why? Because sooner or later, like, the longer we keep prolonging our truth, the more we kind of trying to manipulate the situation. It's not even real anyway then. It's not even real.
Yeah.
But hey, I want to change the subject into a first date. Let's go to the first date and let's talk about who is paying on the first date.
Oh, okay. Who's paying this? Well, okay. I don't have a hard rule about this, but I'm just gonna. I would never say to everybody this is what should happen. I'm gonna speak from personal experience on this one. Personally, if I go on a date, I like when a man offers to pay the first time. I really like that feeling that he is leading. I like the feeling that he's taking care of me. I like the feeling that he has the means to treat me to something. And it feels like really nice also that I don't have to fumble around with my purse and feel really awkward and stand there and like think, is he going to pay? Is he not going to pay? Should I offer to pay? It just all feels quite stressful to me. And like, if I want to be in my feminine energy, I want to feel like I don't have to worry about any of these things. I just want to be taken care of. That's how I feel. That's me personally. After that, I'm quite happy to share payments for things. I don't have the expectation that a guy would pay for everything. But actually, I think that, again, for me, that comes into conscious dating, is that I would want to have an honest and discussion with whoever it is I'm seeing, to just kind of say, like, I like to eat out 5 times a week, and they might say, I can't afford to do that, you know. And that's so I think that conversation needs to happen at some point, just to be completely open about where you're both at financially. You know, they could be saving for a house, I could be saving for a car, I might want to like get takeaway dinners from Tesco's, who knows. But so that's my perspective. What's yours?
Well, I come from a culture where man is a provider, you know. So every time when I would go on a date and that's not the case, like, I know for sure this is not going to go anywhere for me. I just simply cannot surrender in a relationship, in even dating a person, knowing that he wants more with me, but I have to pay my way. It doesn't compute in my mind at all. I do not get it. But I also worked with a lot of women who, like, no, I have to pay half, you know, we have to go 50-50. But also, in my experience, it just doesn't allow me to feel that feminine and taken care of. Like, when, like your masculine role when you're in the masculine energy
Mm.
is to provide and protect.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you want to give 50% of responsibility of provide and protect onto myself? Like, I can do it for myself, that there is no doubt about it. But why we coming here together? Isn't it like for you to be in your masculine and for me to be in my feminine and just see what we can create together? You know, so yeah, pain on the first date is, and you know what? The thing is, I really love spoiling my partners.
Mm.
Like when I'm dating somebody, when I love them, I'm like, I would love to go to like fancy hotels, like maybe getaways, you know, fancy restaurant. I love those things. I love surprising my partners. But
Mm.
you know, when I'm noticing that is only me who's doing that, that becomes a problem for me. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
maybe because sooner or later it becomes an expectation. And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. Why is this happening here? You know, I remember I dated this guy. It was just so funny. And for his birthday, I took us to a really nice hotel. You know, it's like really spoiled him. It was just wonderful. I really enjoyed that, you
Mm.
know. So then the next time we agreed to go to a hotel somewhere by the sea and everything. So when we got to the reception and everything, by the time to pay, he just disappeared somewhere. I'm like, what? What is this? You know, so the guy just disappeared. I'm like, this is crazy.
Wow.
What is going on here? You know what I mean? So, and then as soon as I paid, he's like, oh, hi, you paid? That.
Right. So that's really unclear communication. Like that's what I pick up from that. It's like there was like a level of denying and pretending that the bill wasn't going to be paid, and like it wasn't a clear exchange. It wasn't like that conversation was had. So it kind of went into the murky areas, and then yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So, you know, I am a firm believer in a clear communication. And like, believe it or not, now before I would go on a date with someone, I would discuss who is paying the bill. So
wow, really?
there is no surprises. You know, I am just not willing to put myself in the situation where I feel unsatisfied, you know, and I just know based on who I am and my values, if we're gonna have a wonderful date, but at the end we're gonna split the bill, I'm gonna walk away with a bitter taste in my mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm just not prepared to spend my time, my precious time, onto feeling bitterness afterwards.
I get you. Yeah. And it is really interesting because from what I hear you saying and from what I said, like I think we have slightly different views and that's fine. But like the thing that I think I've heard us both emphasize is it's about the feeling of being taken care of. It's about the feeling of I can surrender. It's about the feeling of like I don't have to worry about this or think about this more than the number of pounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that sense of care.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Absolutely.
I'm hearing.
Absolutely. I
Um,
think the sense of care, this is the, like, why would I date otherwise? I want to be taken care of. I want to be treated nicely. I want to be adored. I want to be lavished. It's just so great. I want to share me with you. You know, it's like I don't want to split the bill. It's like this just doesn't compute in my head at all. And you know, in my country, if you know, I would offer to pay bill like in front of the guy, like it would be offensive.
right,
It would be
right.
offensive. I went out with my cousin, he's 25. There was no question about who's paying the bill, you know? He was paying the bill. He's 25. I mean, you know, and then more than that, after we went, you know, outing, he helped me to go back to my home. And he's like, well, I just have to tell your mom that you are safe. Like, those are the manners, you know, those, like, this is the man. You know, he might be 25, but this is a behavior of a grown man.
Yeah.
And this is so lovely to see that it's still out there. So all of you ladies who are watching and thinking, it's like, oh, but there are no not good men out there, or there are no men who have manners. It's like, no, they're there. And you know, for the guys actually who saying is like, oh, you need to date a wealthy man. No, you know what happens is, like, it's just you have to be selective who you go on a date with.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going through numbers and just like trying to go on as many dates as possible, sure enough, you have to be very wealthy to, you know, to be able to pay for everybody for your dates, for as a man, you know. But if you are very selective who you go on a date with, and you go on a date with somebody that you know that you have a real connection,
Yeah.
this is when, you know, you are investing into that connection. It's not any longer an expense, it's an investment. Because you invest in her feeling more relaxed. When she's more relaxed, she can give her best to you.
It's true.
Rather than thinking is like, well, is he gonna pay? Am I paying? You know, it's like, do I even need this date? You know, if I'm unsure, like, what, like, confusion makes, you know, confusion is the most dangerous place on earth.
And you've made a really good point there that I hadn't thought of, which is the sort of being selective part. Because of course, if you're seeing dating as a means to a sexual end, you know, and that's your primary focus, and then you're sort of going on lots of dates with that intention, it's very different to a man who genuinely wants to meet someone and is therefore, like you say, being much more selective. And they're not going on loads of dates all the time with all kinds of different people. It's like they're looking for someone to form a deeper connection with, and then it's a different level of investment. And yeah, it's such an interesting thing, the way that the feminine flowers and blossoms and relaxes and then becomes more radiant, the more safe and held and cared for and appreciated she feels, right? That's just how that sort of energy, the polarity energy, works. I'm just looking at the time, Eugina, and I'm like, how did that happen? We were going to talk about sex tonight. Like, I really wanted to talk about sex.
I guess we will have to leave it till the next Monday. What do you think?
Guys, we didn't do that on purpose to titillate you. We were going to talk about sex. It's a really important topic. And we've both got a lot to say about it as well, haven't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's leave this juicy topic till the next Monday.
For me, it has to be, I've got not a day, but I have got something next Monday. So it will have to be the Monday after next Monday, whenever that is.
Right? Yeah. So until next time, until our next conversation. And as we checking out from this wonderful conversation, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I want to introduce myself, and I want to mention a couple of things. Sure. So, hi, I'm Shakti Sundari, and I'm a love coach with a background in Tantra, authentic relating, and embodied awareness. For me, those three things all go hand in hand, because I don't think you can relate consciously if you're not embodied. I'm based in Glastonbury in the UK. I do one-to-one coaching, and I've got 2 events coming up I want to mention. So next Wednesday, the 5th of February, I'm doing an online session with my beautiful friend Lasar called Clearing Love Blocks. Her work is amazing. It's like this deep energetic clearing of the field, and then together, like, so she's bringing that and I'm bringing my sort of deep insight into what's going on. So that's next Wednesday the 5th, and then on the 15th of February, which is a Saturday, I'm running a day here in Glastonbury in person called Conscious Connecting, where we're going to get to practice conscious relating, communication, boundaries and consent, conscious touch, and just exploring the realms of how do I relate consciously. So this is in a context without the pressure. It's not about dating at all, but it will be a gender balanced space. So very excited about that.
So exciting.
Yeah.
And for myself, my name is Eugina O'Liberty, and I'm a dating coach. And I've been working in the dating space for the past 7 years. I typically work with strong and independent women, helping them to create and keep juicy and passionate relationships that rock their world. And I also have 2 events coming up. And one is Introduction to Tantra here in Folkestone, where I live. And it's on 18th of February, 7 till 10 p.m. I'm going to post the link here in the comments. So if you are in the area, come and join us. Beautiful, gentle space to connect with self, to connect with others. I just can't wait for that. And another event is in London, in Chelsea, and it's called Valentine's Celebration of Love for Playful Adults. So this event is for playful adults who are kinky or curious. And again, we're gonna do a lot of beautiful connection games with the like-minded people, and a bit of a mingling afterwards, so you can enjoy your time, enjoy your connections, and make new friends, and perhaps meet somebody special. So yeah, I will leave those links here. And if you want to speak to me privately, just drop me a message. I'd be very, very happy to connect with you.
Yeah, I will also post links underneath as well for the things I've mentioned. And wow, the time has just flown. Once again, I can't wait to continue the conversation, actually, Eugina.
Absolutely. We will make it happen.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us. Lots of love. See you soon.
Lots of
Bye
love.
for now.